Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the A&R Black Hats podcast. On today's first episode, we have a very special guest. We have Chris, a friend of mine that I met at PAX, who's a fellow netrunner, and also has a YouTube channel of his very own. Go ahead and say hi, Chris.
Hey, everyone. How you doing?
And I'm also joined today by our very own Black Hat, Dean.
Hey, everyone. Good to have you guys all around.
So on the first episode today, we're just going to do kind of a discussion of where the meta is at now, where we think it's going to go once we actually get data in Destiny and the Mumbad cycle gets started, some of the cards we're playing now, and archetypes we're looking forward to in the future. But I wanted to start off today's episode by talking to Chris and just getting a little bit of your backstory. I've seen a lot of your Octagon playthroughs on YouTube. I always enjoy watching your play. And I want to know how you got into doing that and how you got into Netrunner and what you're playing these days.
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of, recording on Jinteki instead of Octagon lately, just because it's a lot quicker. I can jump on it and jump off it. But yeah, definitely some Octagon play too. But anyway, so I have this channel, Hidden Assets, which you can search for on YouTube, and we have a website that's under construction. That's hidden-assets.net, but it's not really worth looking at right now. There's not much to it, just a bunch of CSS I worked on during the summer and stuff like that. But anyway, so I'm kind of known in the area as the Nacier player. You probably have seen me on Jinteki if you play Jinteki as CJFM. That's me. So I'm also on stimhack, and I kind of waft from forum to forum. I play Kate. I've been playing Noise lately, and I've been really loving some of the new stuff from Data and Destiny. That just been playing it online. Sync is awesome. It's insanely good.
I agree.
And I used to play RP all the time. RP used to be my thing, so I used to make people cry.
RP used to be a lot of people's thing. It's really good for when you just want to make the game a grindhouse. But tell me a little bit about how you got into the game.
So I had a friend who introduced me to Netrunner. He brought the core set. It was just a single core set. He's like, let's try this thing out. I'm like, okay. I like board games. I like card games. So we opened it up and realized that the rule book was, a good 40 pages long and that we really needed to actually study this thing. And I think we tried the first game ever and were horrible at everything. We couldn't get the run sequence right. We didn't know what we were doing. We thought once you passed ice that the ice died, things like that. And so, as we went through it, we realized, well, maybe we should take a pause, like look up some of these things and come back to it. And what happened was he sort of dropped it, but I got obsessed with it and started, looking up how the rules worked and how cards worked. And I got really into it and I just fell in love with it. So.
Awesome. I mean, that story is very similar to the story that I had. My friend and I bought the core set. He thought it was more of like a standalone board game because he's much more of a board gamer than a, card gamer or deck builder. And then, we kind of really had gotten to the sense of what the game was. And he was like, oh, I'm out. And I'm like, oh, I'm all in. Give me more.
Yeah.
So, Dean, we haven't heard from you in a while. What have you been up to? What have you been playing?
So, what I've been up to, just prepping for Worlds, really. So, this is about less than 3 weeks we have until Worlds drops down for all of us, and we'll be competing, going head to head against each other.
Yeah, with Data and Destiny coming out like a week beforehand.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one because I want everyone in the meta to kind of contribute and be able to give their thoughts on it, but having such a constrained time frame in terms of this, it's just those people who have that in Destiny, or those who are willing to proxy it, or those who are really enthusiastic about Worlds, or really playtesting and really getting more data out of it. But I mean, so just for the past few, not even just weeks, I've been practicing since about September or August, just practicing and seeing between all the different archetypes. So if you were to ask me what I've been playing recently, I've been playing Cade, I've been playing HB, I've been playing NBN, I've been playing all the archetypes and just kind of get a feel. Because right now, being that the World's coming up, I just want to be able to be sure for my sake, as I'm comfortable with every matchup and just knowing the final inning workings of everything that's being played out there right now. So, and just being able to see recently we had these side games from stimhack. I helped organize that with Dan DeGenio. Seeing a lot of the new decks that just came out in terms of what people thought were competitive. that gave me like a little bit of indicators like, okay, these are kind of things to keep out. Like it's not only until recently that people realize like you have to play 2 Plascreeds. And I was like, dang it. People caught on, and cause I was telling all the guys in our local meta, I was like, I think 2 Plascreeds kind of have to be something now because kill decks are starting to come back again.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that's come up in a lot of discussions. It's that, in the inside group of the people who are either have Data and Destiny available or have been proxying it, or, the people who are really enthusiastic about Netrunner who play on Octagon and Jiteki all the time. Not saying that you're not enthusiastic if you don't play online. But the people who are really into getting that advanced practice are starting to realize that the days of, the prepaid Kate with no Plascreed or all of the Anarch decks with no Plascreeds is just not going to be viable because then it doesn't give you any room to make any mistakes. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of the things that I wanted to discuss just for my own selfish Netrunner intentions is, as both of you probably know, I've been a noise player pretty much exclusively for the last 2 years. And I'm concerned that people are finally really starting to tech against him, given the strength that he's had this tournament season. And I'm really concerned that the new NBN cards that are coming out in Data and Destiny are disproportionately strong against him compared to the other Anarchs. What do you guys think about that?
Did you want me to jump in first, Chris, or do you want to
go? Go for it. Yeah, you can jump in.
So I wouldn't say it was more so like a purposeful tech, or it was more like the tech that was coming about, and it just indirectly affected noise, right? Like, so I'll give you an example. So NBN, a lot of people are like playing the hybrid where they're trying to test out team sponsorship, and to make sure team sponsorship fires as often as you can, people are playing more breaking news, and because people are playing more breaking news, what in turn it's such a strong agenda for like the 2-for-1. The ability to give the runner tags and then be able to trash a resource is so strong. So, like for a lot of people, Anarchs are like, wow, the wild cakes, right? Or if it's in this case, noise, being able to kill the ASOP economy is so important because a lot of people are looking at noise now and they're not even playing sure gambles because they want to be able to fit more of the tech into it, right? So just that didn't really hurt it. And the presence of Clot, just continually being there. And once again, team sponsorship being able to bring that back and recur it as often as they can. Being that CyberX Virus Suite is recurable and brought back as often, once again, it's indirectly hurting noise. And it's just something that just naturally is teching up to work against them. So right. That's why there's a lot of discussion in the community competitive-wise, like, okay, maybe we stick with Kate because really, what resources does she really use? She uses like symmetrical visage and she uses the same old thing. And those are things that you lose. You're like, it's not as painful as losing like a huge quickless economy card that noise has, right?
Absolutely. Chris, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly pretty much what I was going to say is that breaking news, like just the threat of losing an Aesop's early game is so bad. Like, if you lose Aesop's, you can draw a lot of cards. You will be out for maybe 3 to 4 turns. And by then, NBN will score at least 2 agendas. I mean, it's not that hard. I mean, you can find like a Faust and kind of like keep up. You can find a medium and keep up, but it's hard when you don't have any economy.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And as somebody who plays noise basically all of the time as my go-to runner, I think one of the biggest things is that, the mid-season decks that were popular, the butcher shops that were popular up until things like, the harp cards that are going to come out in Data and Destiny, like 24/7 News Cycle, and also things like team sponsorship, like what you were saying, Dean. I didn't really fear anything. Because if I didn't steal an agenda, you couldn't mid-season me. I usually, if I wasn't going to get C-Source, because once I got my econ engine going, I was probably going to be on par with you as far as money is concerned. So, but now the ability to just put tags on me consistently and recur the virus suite without me having any ability to really do anything about that, that's what's really taken back the power, because the deck was kind of almost on autopilot, where I was discussing this with Dan Giorgenio the last time I played against him. I usually knew what all 4 of my noise clicks were going to be before my turn even started, before my wild side draw. Just from reading the board state. But yeah. So, moving on from that, let's talk about some of these Data and Destiny cards and what are some of the ones that we think are really going to be game-changing as far as the meta for Worlds and beyond. I would say to go first, I think that once again, going back to Anarchs especially, all-seeing eye is going to be a huge nuclear bomb dropped on Anarchs, because if you make even a single mistake, if you snatch that TGBT or if they land that breaking news and they don't have the kill combo, they can still destroy your entire back line, which is just absolutely devastating to Anarch.
I somewhat disagree with that. I think All-Seeing Eye is going to be played because people are going to be teching against maybe DLR shenanigans, maybe some noise, but I honestly think that it's not really worth the slot as much as closed accounts is.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion. I think you'll probably hold it in hand and go, man, I wish I could just like take out all the runners economy right now. But it's Kate, and Kate doesn't have any problem with that. So it's a dead card in that matchup. So I think that there's something to be said for the power of the card, but I don't think it actually is going to be played in competitive as much as people think. I think it'll be played, but I don't think it'll be as effective as people want it to be.
So I agree with you, because when I was casting the Psy games just the other weekend, one thing that I noticed in the second place player, Kukuba, he had All-Seeing Eye in his deck, and there was times where we saw him have the ability to kind of go with it. But at the end of the day, being the runner field being 58% Kate, and just like getting an inkling and getting a feeling of the competitive players, they seem to be very locked on using that identity. The obtuse is like the other identities that need the resources. Like, I think it does help definitely hurt directly, which is noise. But the other concern is like people, well, if I'm playing resources, I'm just going to play Valencia, right? And they're going to play the DLR version.
Right.
So just losing the bad pup, it's not a huge loss. And secondary is like, yes, like I do agree with like closed accounts is so much more of a stronger play. I remember back in the day, 2014 Canadian Nationals, I was playing NBN Making News, and it was basically a mid-season deck, which had the option to archive memories, close accounts. Being able to, install advance, res Sansan, give you tags of close accounts, just to protect the Sansan for another turn to guarantee the next score of like an Astro, right? So that was just so much more powerful than that of like wiping a resource. Because at the end of the day, the game it really is a speed game on both sides, where one side needs to score and the other side needs to steal. Being able to take away your money and then score is so much more powerful than just like wiping card draw or wiping, I don't know, like a daily cast.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to get your guys' opinions, because honestly, you guys are bringing, different things, because, in the group that I play in, we're a smaller group here in Northern Delaware, but we do see a lot of people playing noise, so I probably have a distorted opinion, because I'm thinking from the mindset of how it affects me, and not necessarily how it doesn't affect, because, I'm almost embarrassed to say this, I don't think I've sleeved up a green deck in months. No, that's not true. I did a Haley Stealth deck a little while, but, Jank City. So, Chris, what card are you really excited for from Data and Destiny, or what card do you think is going to really impact the game?
Besides the identities, so sort of stay away from them for right now.
Besides the IDs.
I've played against Archangel, and it's just amazing. Like, it's a really, really, really competitively priced code gate. It does a lot. That actually, in my opinion, hurts noise more than some of these other things, because R&D digs running through an Archangel is fairly difficult unless you can find your David. It's not impossible to do that, but it's very annoying. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've been playing with it. It's just really good.
And I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
To piggyback on that, I think the biggest thing about Archangel that I've learned from my own testing with Sync is that Archangel Gutenberg just chews up David counters, which and
also on that note, Atman at 6 is going to become the new thing against Sync, because it just like you get Atman and then you get Lady and then or Inti, and you just run through all of their ice, and I guess you have to parasite the Data Ravens, but that's like what Shaper's going to have to do. Anyway.
So Dean, what do you think as far as cards that you're really looking forward to?
I know a lot of people are pretty locked on in terms of like 24/7 news cycle because of like its options to be able to flatline. But I'm actually eyeing more Global Food Initiative because of how it brings up more varied deck building options. So the biggest fear for a lot of times like playing Glacier deck is like, okay, I'll put in 3-pointers, which is in essence lowers down the density, right? But the problem is always like if they touch a 3-pointer, it only takes them 3 scores to win now, right? So I know I've like the Toronto Girl has been testing like quite a bit of HP Glacier, and just being able to play that 3-pointer and have it stolen from you is not such a big loss because they still need to score 4 times, right? Whereas you have the option to score 3 times as HP now, which is huge, right? Being able to get in, lock down that one big Glacier remote where it's just like so devastating to go through and so taxing. And if they fail, you just scored now, giving you an ability to just score one more time, or depending where you are in the game state. And if they somehow get through and steal the agenda, then it's not that much of a loss. It still opens up like that scoring window for you, right? To continue another score. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't score this one. I'll score another 2-pointer. Or maybe I have another GFI in hand, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I 100% agree. Yeah. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Just the notion that, an agenda that, as far as the runner is concerned, if you're running 3 of these, you're actually only running 17 points of agendas. As far as the runner is concerned, is a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're playing that sync deck, you're effectively running 15 points, and then you're running News Team, and then you're running Quantum Predictive Model. So it gets very, very hard for the runner to score. It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. But so let's move on. Honestly, I think one of the best things to talk about when we're talking about the new Data and Destiny Deluxe box is the IDs, because I think the IDs, especially on the Corp side, are really impactful. And I think it's going to be the first time that we really see a big box where the identities that come with the big box are going to see more play than the core. Because when Creation and Control came out, there was some really good Shaper stuff in there, right? And there was some really good HB stuff in there, but really the IDs didn't stick super hard, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. Actually, I'd say the HB side got very short shrift in that box. Some of the ice are okay, but
right.
Yeah.
And then if you look at Order and Chaos, obviously Argus does definitely see play, and there are still some holdouts for Gargarin. But really, Blue Sun, which came out in a data pack, still maintains its authority as this is Wayland and the competitive echelons for a lot of people. Maybe Argus in a second place, but I think these NBN identities are actually going to really start to take the place of NEH, which we've been talking about forever. When will things come along that actually make people not want to play NEH? What do you think, Dean?
I disagree a bit with it. I think, and I look at these ideas and I think like, okay, these are pretty interesting ideas like Sync, and I think like the Energy Soul, or like the more currents, like the more like power it can be given, right? And I think Spark Agency is like, oh, maybe it has more advertisements. I think Spark is the weakest out of all of them, but I may be wrong, like just based on like first time experience. But NH is just there's so much power in that identity, and so much power in the fact that like it's given 17 influence that it's not negligible. Like I'm looking at compared to this, like, okay, yeah, so yes, like being able to tag you and trash your resources, that's important. Being able to tag you and making that increased tax for removing it is important. But it's not important as you being able to get a free card draw. It's not as important as you being able to get that extra influence to put another cornerstone in your deck to get your plan, which is effectively score, right? And it's just, there's so much going for that identity NEH that I feel like there was a bit of a developer flaw when it came down to it. That's like personal bias around it, but it's just too strong because it gives you so many outs and gives you so many options more so than other decks would have.
Right. And one of the discussions that me and a bunch of the guys in Philly had a while back was that NEH could have been printed with 15 influence and it would still be one of the best identities in the game.
Yeah, it doesn't need 17 influence. It already draws a card for doing what you normally do. It's ridiculous. You have like 4 clicks.
It's on par with HB as far as rewarding you for what you were going to do anyway.
Yeah. I think it's slightly better than ETF because of the way that NBN and NBN's gameplay is basically to go fast and to score and find those Astros fast. So it just plays right into exactly what it wants to do. I mean, ETF does that too with its gameplay, but I think it's it's just slower, and slower is worse in a way, because the longer you go, the better the runner gets. So
yeah. So we've got Worlds looming, as we mentioned, only 3 weeks away. So where do we think the competitive meta is going? What do we think the direction that people are going to take in what they bring to Worlds and the competitive tournaments that are going to happen afterwards?
You go first.
You go first, guys.
All right. I will tell you what I would bring if I were going to Worlds. I'm not going this year. I will probably go next year. If I were going this year, I would probably either bring, I'm not even joking, I would bring Sync Psycho, because I think that deck is very strong. And the only deck that has beat my Sync Psycho yet right now was a weird Valencia Blackmail, medium, super medium dig deck, which nobody plays, but and I just didn't find any agendas.
Except for that one guy.
Thing. Yeah, except for that one guy. Maybe I'll run into that guy, but no. I think you're going to see that. I would have brought that, or I'm going to bring Turtlebacks NEH, because that deck is so stupid. It is, without a doubt, the most aggravating deck I've played against so far. You just can't keep up with it. And you can't contest every remote. You can't check every remote. So a good player can exploit that. And you're just going to be left in the dust. Yeah. Oh, and for the runner, I'd still bring Kate. I wouldn't bring Noise. I like Noise, and I'm sorry, Dan. I really like Noise.
I know.
I love Kate. I love Shaper. I'm green at heart, so yeah, I'd go with Kate.
I'm gonna stay on this ship long after the rats leave.
Yeah, I played Noise last year at Worlds, and it was interesting because people actually checked against it too. It was like, oh wow, it's funny. I think I played 6 rounds of Swiss or 7. I forget how many rounds of Swiss, but I played 4 or 5 RP, and I was like, wow, this is all these people checking against Noise. I see all these Lotus Fields, and it's just where are my knights at? Because back in the day, we didn't have Faust, right?
Right. Yeah, Noise with the 2 knights as Lotus Field breakers.
Yeah. That was the answer way back in the day. But from my notion and from the people I've connected regarding Worlds, everyone seems to be either on the NH Fast Show train or they're on the Harpsichord Kill You train. Yeah. And then you sprinkle in do a little bit of flavor. It was oh, I want an RP rush, or oh, I want HP mid range. So it's interesting because unlike last year's meta, I think I feel as much as there's such a love for NEH, I feel like there is actually quite a bit of diversity, which I am excited about, because there's a good amount of viable decks you can play now. From the corporation side, from the runner side too, it's just, I think people are they crave consistency, which is why they're very happy with, prepaid Kate. It was funny. I was looking at the stats again at, the side games. 58% Shaper. There's only 1 Haley in that list. Wow. Everyone else is Kate.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that speaks to something very important when you mentioned last year's Worlds and consistency. Last year's Worlds, runners were very efficient and very strong, especially if you're talking about Andy, but even Kate still. So people were kind of, bottlenecked into a lot of times playing RP, because RP was one of the few corps at that time that could really get that consistency you needed to get that win.
Right. Well, also over the course of a very long tournament, the Corp has the advantage in side games because it's less stressful often when you're dictating the game. It can be the runner dictates the game, especially if you get siphoned early and you're on the back foot or something. But if as the Corp and you're going over a long period of time, I think runners can really get wary of playing side games, and it goes in your favor.
Yeah.
It could also go the other way. Yeah, it could also go the other way too. You can just get really, really tired of playing side games. So.
I don't name any names, but I know some people in the community are pretty avidly hate side games, and they're willing to throw their life away to make sure side games go away.
Well, it's who was I talking to? I think I was talking to 0 Hour from Netrunner DB, and talking about, just mid-range HB, Marcus Batty, next gold shenanigans. Which you're not going to consistently land, but when it lands, man, is it impactful.
Yeah.
To just do a rig trash off of a Marcus Batty. Like,
it hurts. It hurts. Without a doubt, that is that's not fun.
Well, I think that asset especially is very interesting when you think of, or upgrade, I should say, because it's one that slots, I think, a little bit better in HB than it does in Jinteki, even though obviously you see Jinteki players using it, because the subroutines that can potentially fire out of HB are a lot worse than a lot of the ones that Batty could be triggering in Jinteki that are often like 1 net damage.
That's true.
But
although
yeah.
I really want to fire Batty on an Inazuma and make them run right into a Komainu or something like that. That's pretty fun.
See, but now we're getting into like Whirlpool server territory. Where you need like 3 cards drawn in a specific order and the money to res all of it. And win a side game. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about some of the spoilers that have come out for the Mumbad cycle and what we're really excited about. One of the big ones that I am super excited about is actually the one that was spoiled today, and it's Jeeves. Let me go ahead and bring that up real quick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just unreal how good I think this card is going to be. Where's the spoiler from earlier today?
Yeah, I can read it if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's 2 to res, 5 to trash, Jeeves model Biowards, an asset alliance. This card costs 0 influence if you have 6 or more non-alliance HP cards in your deck. The first time you spend 3 clicks on the same action each turn, gain a click.
Yeah. So, do you want to explain some of the interactions with that?
Yeah, so the first thing is like Jeeves is a unique card. So just so you're sure, it's can't have multiple of these out and have them res to kind of get this ability. So we're seeing through this card is the introduction of like a new mechanic. So there's alliance cards, right? Because it has a subtype alliance. So I'm guessing with this, like they're trying to want people to splash different influence of alliance cards into it. Regardless of that, the interaction that you can get out of this is a lot of people have been talking about is like being able to biotic labor and advance something 3 times, or even if you have something installed never advance style, you can res this, advance it 3 times, and then we get that 4th click, you can advance it 1 more time. So effectively allowing you to score like efficiency committees or sentinel and defense programs if this kind of deck you want to build.
Yep. If you had 1 research grant in your hand and 1 on the board, you could score or triple advance, gain a click, put the other one down and score both of them.
There you go. That's an idea.
Yeah, I mean, it just enables a bunch of really interesting plays. And then also we were, Chris and I were discussing before we started recording today, something that I want to bring up now, that, if you do something like you play Biotic Labor as your first click, that's an operation. If you then play a shipment from Sansan, which has as its additional cost to spend a click, did you then just spend 3 clicks on operations so you get the additional click?
Yeah, we don't know that, but I think that's something people will probably ask Lucas, and he might say, "We'll find out eventually." But
well, because I think that could be an interaction that could be very powerful, especially in HB Fast Advance.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're also using that card to maybe score an efficiency committee, that can just make it bonkers to just kind of windmill agendas in and out of your scoring remote very fast.
Yeah.
So, Dean, what are you kind of interested in from the new cycle that's coming up?
So what I'm actually interested in is the new Grey Ops, which is the operation from NBN. So it's 4 influence operation, alliance card Grey Ops, 2 play Salem's Hospitality. So this card costs 0 influence if you have 6 or more non-alliance NBN cards in your deck. And what it says is name a card. the runner reveals his or her grip and trashes all copies of the name card from his or her grip. So it's just like absolutely devastating card. Like I think, like this card, I guess you have to find out. Like first off, like if you can find a way to how to splash this in and get it to cause 0 influence, like it's great in Chronos Protocol. Like just imagine you get to see the cards whenever you do the net damage, and on your turn you can further remove another card from their hand. It's like, oh my god, that's amazing, right? On top of this too, like this gives a reason for Snoop to be played, which I think I've loved that ice for quite a bit, but there's never, I know the cards in your hand, but there was never anything beyond that. Now having this as an option, besides like Invasion of Privacy, which if you fail, then you just get a bad pub, which really, really sucks at the end of the day. Yeah, just give me more options at the end of the day, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, and it's important to note that this card doesn't have any conditions on it, besides the card being in the hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead, Chris, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to say that was the one that stood out to me as well. Just, I don't know why it is that yellow gets all the best stuff, but it's just it's so nasty. It's so nasty. It's really good for everything. It's good for removing Plascreets from hand beforehand. It's good for, like, taking out I Have Headworks before you scorch somebody. You know, there's a lot of options here.
Oh, that's amazing. I hadn't even thought of that.
It's just amazing. Yeah. I think that we're going to see it played a lot. And, I don't know. I wanted to choose the Wayland asset. That was kind of cool. I like the art on it, and I think the idea is neat. So,
do you want to go over it?
Yeah, sure. This is a 0 res 3 to trash asset. It's called Executive Search Firm. It's an Alliance Ritzy, and it reads, this card costs 0 influence if you have 6 or more non-Alliance Wayland cards in your deck. And then it has the text, click, search R&D for an executive, sysop, or character, reveal it, and add it to HQ, shuffle R&D. So there's a couple reasons I really like this card, and one is that I like that Wayland has all of the tutoring of all the corps. So I think that's kind of cool, except for the Jinteki operation that finds executives and stuff like that. That's kind of the only one that they don't have. But here's their own version on a stick, pretty much. I always a little bit skeptical about assets that cost 3 and don't give you money or put you vastly ahead. But I think this ability is kind of cool. I could see it being played in kind of that Gagarin shell game deck. I can see it being played to kind of grab your one of baddie or something like that, or maybe you're playing one Caprice. Can you grab a Caprice? No, Caprice is a clone. You could grab Ash? Right?
It says character.
I don't think she's a character. I think she's a clone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hang on. We can figure this out right now, but that's an interesting card as well, and I think it could definitely be slotted into Gagarin. Yep, clone Psy, no Sysop. Yeah.
But I mean, regardless, it's still pretty cool. The only other one,
it costs you nothing to res, but it does cost you a deck slot.
Yeah, I know. That's the kind of bad thing. I don't know. They have all the tutoring, but none of the answers.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I think a while back, one of the funniest posts I saw on Netrunner Geeks that somebody put up was the "When's it gonna be my time" from Jane Silent Bob Strike Back, and it was like Wayland players be like, "When's gonna be my time?" Because you have so much stuff that people want to borrow, and some of the best operations in the game are in Wayland. They have some of the best agendas, and they just don't have the tools to make a deck that can really stand up against a lot of different runner archetypes, you know?
It's just weird when, like, other corporations can borrow your tools and do a better job at what you're trying to do in your own faction. It's just so obtuse and so awkward. It's just, why play this identity?
Well, what ended up happening, I think, is that Scorched Earth is a super, super powerful card, and so is Traffic Accident, right? So what ended up happening is when those cards got ported, and they went into factions where people had more money or more draw, like NBN, and also the alternate win condition, you know, FFG had to be like, oh my god, all this meat damage, it's so powerful, right? So we have to do something to mitigate this, and then when they mitigate that by making runners more rich, making them more consistent, the other factions still have their fallback plans, and Wayland, that is their plan, so it disproportionately affects them. It's kind of like you were talking about with noise. It's like an indirect nerf. They're trying to nerf NEH Butcher Shop, but they end up nerfing Wayland because Wayland depends on that meat damage threat to close games.
Right. Well, actually, they depend on tagging. They don't have any in-faction way to tag besides Shadow, I think, and that's a horrible ice. So really, they have to import all the things they need to do, which sucks. But NEH doesn't really have to do that. They don't need to scorch you. They can, but they don't need to. So that's the problem. I think Wayland will get better if they get an in-faction way to scorch, or not, sorry, in-faction way to tag. That's just a better ice, maybe. That would be awesome. Maybe like a 4-strength sentry that's just like trace 4, give the runner a tag. I don't know, something awesome like that. But they need something on the ice end of things before they can actually be more viable outside of Blue Sun, I think.
What do you think, Dean?
Yeah, I agree. There just has to be, I don't know, whether it be agenda-wise or whether it be just a different game plan, because the game plan they have is so revolving around just like being able to tag you and like just money pressure you, right? Which back in the day when I used to play a lot of Wayland, that was the thing you can get away with. It's like, hey, you better run the server or I might score an Atlas, or you better run the server or I might score. This actually might be a posted bounty and I'll kill you, right? And then if you run the server and you don't have Plascrete, hey, I'm just going to kill you anyway. So you're in this fork. And now runners have so much better options. So the game basically has to be updated for them. There has to be a new mechanic for them that makes sense for them to pressure the runner, because the days of, hey, I'll pressure you with just like my wallet, it's not happening anymore. Everyone has Gucci.
Yeah.
Right. And I think also something to kind of piggyback on that is that their thing is barriers, and their barriers don't have any teeth. Barriers, as a rule, almost always don't have any teeth. Everybody else has these incredible pieces of ice that do all this crazy crap, right, that slow down the runner that the runners can't ignore. When you drop money on a barrier in Wayland, you ended the run, but you didn't really significantly impact the runner's game state, which isn't bad because, once again, you can always import ice, but as Chris said, you have to borrow the things you need to get the kill, so that doesn't leave enough room to get the cool ice, and they don't have any ice that's really good to play with teeth themselves.
I mean, when they solved the ice problem, I think a lot of Wayland's woes will kind of mellow out a little bit. The big problem, I think that's the biggest problem right now, but besides the tagging issue, you kind of allay those issues or set them aside with those Gagarin decks, like the Turtlebacks Gagarin deck, the Space Turtles deck, which is, I think, probably one of the better Gagarin decks I've played. I played a couple of them, and that's been the most consistent one. I've enjoyed that the most. I've won with it the most. But the problem with that deck is it doesn't play that much ice, and so it solves the problem by just ignoring it. It plays Archer, it plays Tour Guide, which, by the way, is a great addition. It's long since needed a Sentry and the run ice that wasn't Archer. So I mean, right now they're running away from their problems, but they are going to have to turn a corner here soon.
Yeah, I agree.
So the one thing that I wanted to kind of end our first episode today with is, we've been talking a lot about NBN. We've been talking a lot about, the Data and Destiny cards that are going to enable either the threat of tags or tags to really become a big deal. And one of the things that I was thinking about, and I don't necessarily know the answer to it, but, account siphon hasn't really been big in the meta for a while, really since the rise of prepaid and Kate, because people started going to these decks that were a little bit different just to kind of tax out. And, the meta has been able to shift away from heavy ice decks to all these light ice decks. And I have to wonder if we're not creating a delicious meal for Account Siphon. What do you think, Dean?
So part of the reason why Account Siphon fell out of favor was, one, people were getting tired of playing Andy. But two, mainly is because, two is mainly because, Corps have good economic options around. So let's just give an example. Let's just say we play Andy versus Team Sponsorship matchup, right? The Turtle Box matchup. So Andy does have security testing, which you can get money, but then the Corp can continue to advance the board state by just installing and just generating money off Turtle Box and just like the little ice, like it doesn't care too much. And if you attempt to siphon, it'll keep a lot of unrest stuff. So it'll res like a Cyberdex or res a Sand. So the opportunity to steal money and really impact it isn't as much there, right? The second thing is that Criminal just doesn't have the correct tools to deal with fast events or to deal with like options against fast events. And in my belief, I actually think with Councilman coming out, they will have a pseudo answer for it because Councilman allowing you to stop an asset from being res or stop an upgrade from being res is pretty important, right? Stopping a Jackson being able to res to, let's just say, save some agendas in archives, maybe, that's an option. Stopping a Sandstorm from resing by doing that, that's an option. Like, you don't get hurt by CBS anymore. Councilman doesn't care about CBS, right? So, classic Criminal, the biggest thing for them was that they had really terrible program options, but they needed to splash programs, they needed to splash for multi-access. Everything else was a struggle. Like, you can't splash for tutors, you can't really splash for tech against certain matchups. It's just like, this is straight up what I need to do. I need to land the siphon in the first 3 turns. If I don't land the siphon, this game is it's a bit of a slog for me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I think the worst thing is they don't have a good in-faction, fractor and decoder. I mean, the decoder Rex is passable, but not great.
It's not Lady.
The fact that it's not Lady. They also don't have like scavenge in faction and clone chip in faction. You know, it's like, wow, those things work so well with Lady, and uninstall is just uninspiring. So, that exactly what Dean said. I think also Chrysium Grid was being played all the time while Siphon was kind of rampant, and everyone sort of braced for that. And we're seeing now the fallout from all those Siphon decks meeting with Chrysium Grid and going, well, yeah, this isn't working anymore. I need to find another way to get money. And they can't lean on Katie Jones right now that much because people are playing Snatch and Grab. People are playing Tag Punishment. So it's a rough going for Criminals right now.
Right, because their econ is either event-driven or resource-driven, so they're weak on 2 fronts to that type of gameplay.
Yeah, I would say the best way, maybe this might not be the best way, but a very strong way to go with Andy right now is with Magnum Opus as your econ. I know it kind of sucks, but to splash like 2 per Magnum Opus, but you're much more resilient. You often don't get your programs trashed because you have Fairy. Unless you hit a baddie or something like that. And soon a Keegan Lane, that'll be fun. But yeah, program trashing, if you do lose something, it's really rough.
Mm-hmm.
You have no answer in faction.
Yeah, alright. So is there any other topics, anything that anybody would like to go over before we close today?
I wanted to talk about Adam a little bit, some of the runners on the D&D side
Oh
of
yeah,
things.
we didn't even talk about runners. Yeah, so let's talk about
Yellow.
Everyone's really happy about Yellow. No one wants to talk about Gray.
Happy is such a strong word.
It's like gray, purple, and red. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think Adam is going to be interesting. I think he's going to go right up the Nasir alley. Where he's very
offense at that.
No, what I mean when I say that is he forces you into a completely different headspace in order to play him.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean?
He does. Yeah, he does. So it's really, really hard to learn to run every single turn the first click. Octagon and Jinteki don't police that. So it's kind of, you make a lot of mistakes playing online with him and go, crap, I have to go back and do this, take this back off the board, get my credits back, and that takes a while. Wow, it's kind of annoying. But I think he is arguably the strongest of the 3 runners. I like Sunny. I think she might be tied, or she might turn out to be better, but the 50 card deck bothers me. I think Adam has the most viability in a one sub NEH meta, and he's terrible if everyone's playing like Spiderweb and stuff like that. He's terrible with that. But if you're playing like, tag me decks that only have one subs and very low ice composition, I think he does better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, better. I'm not comparatively to the other runners in this pack, I think.
Mm-hmm. So, I got Dad to Destiny from like a friend who went to Gen Con, and we were playing with Adam for fun, and we just built him like a big rig, just like all card draw, all multi-threaders, and just being able to get rid of like some of the directives. It's all jokes aside, it's actually kind of a fun deck. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I actually enjoy playing Adam. I know with a lot of people look at him like, this is really competitive, but like forget competitive for one moment. I just thought about playing the runners, and I even watched someone play Apex the other day. There's a player named Grayfield on Octagon. And as funny as it was just so enjoyable to watch. And I would even imagine myself playing it. I think it's such a different dimension that FFG has brought to the game that until you actually try out the runners and see what it's all about, you can't really judge it. Like, it's such a good time. I don't know if you guys have tried it yourself, but like Apex, he was trying to play an Apocalypse in his deck, and he eventually just like forgoed it altogether. But he ended up trashing all his cards. So at the end of the game, he lost the game, and the corporation was playing like all these Turings. I was laughing. How does an AI pass a Turing test? Like, forgoing the 3 clicks, right? And we just made a joke, and I said to him, like, because he had no cards on his side because he trashed it all to the breaker. He's like, looks like you had your own Apocalypse happen on this side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's also an excellent point. Is that I feel like a lot of people are looking at Sunny. I myself am looking at Sunny because she just works, right? She's got the 50 card size, but there's things you can do to mitigate that, and she's just got a flat bonus. But that's not really adding any new dimensions to the game. They really did a good job of adding 2 really interesting ways of running with the 2 new guys, but it doesn't fit into that consistency at all costs headspace that we usually have in the competitive meta.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how competitive they're going to be. You'll probably see 1 or 2 of them poke up in local tournaments, and maybe not in regionals. Maybe 1 or 2 get to like top 16, maybe. I think there are good cards among them, and I have a feeling that they're going to be more exploited in other factions that just have more answers and have more of a card pool. Like, Apocalypse is awesome for criminals. Apocalypse is also awesome for anarchs who are running Faust and Eater. It's a really good card, but it's not very good in Apex. It's strangely awful in Apex. Apex tries to run against RP, hits an Enigma, and it can't do anything. Like, break 1 sub, can't Apocalypse this turn, better try to pray that thing. Or, have to find like, I don't know, some other AI solution or Parasite or something like that. But it's miserable playing as Apex. I found it's fun. I thought it was fun, but it felt like I was like, what am I doing? I felt like I was like, I'm installing my cards face down. I'm like, this is kind of fun. And I'm like, well, crap, I wanted that card. I installed it face down. I probably did. I didn't know I was going to need it, but now I would have needed it. Like,
yeah, and I think that's an excellent point. I tried. I ran probably maybe a dozen or so test games with him, and it's such an interesting style of play. But he's left with these huge gaps because of the way his mechanic works, where you try to build the deck to patch the gaps, and then those tools are what's burned by the things that he's good at.
Yeah, he can't. His economy's terrible. That's the biggest problem, I think. When we get a good virtual resource economy card, he may see some play. He might see some like decent play because he has cool cards. Prey is awesome. Prey is really good. Apocalypse is awesome. Like, I like Heartbeat. Endless Hunger is, I don't know about Endless Hunger. It soaks up like Power Shutdown, I guess. But like, Harbinger is pretty good for Aesop stacks. I mean, these are really good stuff. Just altogether, I'm not sure what he looks like. I have a much better view of the other 2 runners, having played with Adam quite a lot. And, I really do. I do like Adam the most. I feel like he has multi-threader, which is kind of cool, but it also kind of doesn't work with his ability. I think these runners kind of have the Wayland syndrome. Is like they have cards that are good in faction that don't work with them, and that kind of bothers me.
Right.
And
I can see that.
I mean, maybe not Sunny. Sunny's the only one I think who has everything kind of going for her, like toward her ultimate game plan. She has breakers in faction. Her security nexus is actually awesome. It's really awesome. Like, if you've never like just bypassed an ice like Trace 5, like yeah, I'll just bypass this toll booth, no problem. Like that feels bad from the corp's perspective, and it's really fun to do. Security chip's awesome. Guys gonna like that. I mean, there's just some good stuff in here, but
yeah. So what do you think, Dean?
Well, I just say about the new runners in general, or about
who's your pick for the runners from the Data and Destiny?
I do have to say it was Sunny, just because I actually did build an insanely fun deck with her. Like as much as I enjoyed watching him play Apex and Adam, I did build a pretty controlling deck with Sunny where it just involved if a trace goes off, I make money. If this ice is toxic, I'll just get through it and make money. And just that is funny. Just for that reason only, though. That's very personal bias on it. And also, I think people actually will find great deck building around it. I think the 2-link is really strong. Being able to play Underworld Contacts and not worry. Being able to play there's so many other options, and being able to run through Link and with trace fights very easier. I think it's such a powerful ability.
And as somebody who tested with Geist a lot, what Chris mentioned a little bit earlier about the security chip, man, is that card gonna give Geist a lot more supercharged power.
Yeah.
Just being able
that's his problem, right? His problem is he can only, if you're playing the Desperado build, he can only have 5 programs on board, right? Or if you're playing the Forager version, you just spam out those breaking and entering cards. But security chip just solves your problems. Can't get in that? Okay. It's I got it. No problem. So good.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I'd still probably have to go with Sunny. I need to do a little bit more testing with Adam just because I haven't really had a lot of exposure to him. But once again, I've been kind of really focused on trying to figure out what I'm going to play for Worlds, which has been eating up a lot of my brain. Thank you very much, Chris, for joining us. I do appreciate you coming on. And Dean, always a pleasure. So, everyone who's listening at home, you can find us on Facebook at A&R Black Hats. You can also find us on our YouTube channel, of course, A&R Black Hats. You're probably finding this on iTunes, but we're also on SoundCloud. Give us some feedback, subscribe and share, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot.
See you.